This is Special Prosecutor Larry Klayman.
I'm the only lawyer ever to obtain a court ruling that a president of the United States committed a crime.
For truth. For competition.
As a young lawyer, I helped break up AT&T. That's why you have all your cell phones today.
For sovereignty. For the Republic.
I'm the guy who at Judicial Watch, which I founded, uncovered the Chinagate scandal. Millions of dollars going to the Clinton campaign, corrupting our political system.
For the privacy of citizens.
And I'm the only guy to have enjoined the National Security Agency from mass surveillance on hundreds of millions of Americans.
Tearing it up.
I'm the son of meatpackers in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I know how to slice and dice.
Bringing it back.
We're going to take this country apart and put it back together again in the way envisioned by our founding fathers.
It's not just talk.
We're not just regurgitating news stories. Larry Klayman, special prosecutor, is making the news.
And now, here's Larry.
Welcome to this week's edition of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. We have another very important show. We're talking about federal government tyranny. You know, we've seen that before with regard to the Bundys in Bunkerville, Nevada, how the federal government came in, tried to basically run them out of business, killed their cattle, terrorized them, and then when they had a successful standoff, prosecuted them 2 years in prison without bail. Ultimately, they were released. The indictment was dismissed. The Justice Department is still trying to get it reinstated through our very corrupt Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, a worthless and frankly compromised person. But we see it even more recently with what's been going on with the special counsel's investigation. Of course, we're talking about Robert Mueller and his band of compromised leftist hacks that are trying to destroy not just the president, but of everybody around the president. And this week, we see that he has bludgeoned witnesses in his various investigations and turning over their cell phones, which contain apps such as WhatsApp and cell phone providers, Verizon, Sprint, whatever. And he's getting into these cell phones and he threatened them with a subpoena unless they turn them over under the guise that somehow these witnesses were being tampered with by Paul Manafort and by others. Of course, Manafort, former campaign chairman for President Donald Trump in the lead up to the 2016 elections. They're trying to squeeze him. They're trying to really put him up against a wall to get him to turn on the president. So they're really upping the screws. Now, we're going to have Sham Nunberg on in the second segment, who is someone, a person of interest who they've been threatening. They brought before grand juries. Sam predicted last time that he could be indicted when we had him on this show. But I want him to give his impression as to why he turned his cell phone over. Because, see, it's this tremendous federal power which is unchecked by the Justice Department and the corrupt federal bench by and large, that rubber stamps everything that the federal government wants. That's causing people basically to step on their own petard, for lack of a better word. And it's so severe right now that they did not even exercise their constitutional rights to object to turning over their cell phones under threat of subpoena. Because, you know, it's not just a question of witness tampering. What else is on those cell phones? What else can be used to indict these people? What else can be used to put pressure on the president, to cause them to say things that are not correct, to get the president indicted or impeached? And this is the country that we live in today. It is a tyrannical regime, worse than King George III back in 1776, because they have greater powers. They have the powers of the intelligence agencies, of mass surveillance, of the full force of a corrupt Justice Department behind them. And I'm writing a column tonight for WND.com. It also go out in other sources later in the week. But basically, if I had to do it all over again, you know, I was a federal prosecutor initially. After a couple of years with a litigation law firm in Miami, I went to Washington, D.C. I viewed the Justice Department as the mecca of what any lawyer could do. I believed in it. I was very proud to be at the Justice Department. But today, no, I wouldn't accept a position as a prosecutor. I would be a criminal defense lawyer because, frankly, I don't believe a word that comes out of the mouth of the federal government, not one word. And I don't accept its sincerity in enforcing the rule of law. It doesn't. What it's out to is to get people, by and large, to force them into a corner, to further the interests of the elite and the powerful in Washington, D.C. And those elites and those powerful people, such as Hillary Clinton, such as James Comey, such as former CIA director under Obama, John Brennan, such as former Director of National Intelligence James Clapper, such as President Obama himself and the people in and around him that were around him, like Susan Rice, National Security Advisor, that was unmasking people in the Trump campaign illegally, violating their Fourth Amendment rights. This has become a tyrannical government, and I would no longer be a prosecutor for the federal government. I would be a criminal defense lawyer, which I am in part today, believe me. I mean, that's where my heart is right now because, I don't even care if you're guilty anymore because the federal government, whatever your guilt may be, will try to push it further than what it really is to basically bury you because they are the Orwellian state. They are the people who think that they'll call the shots with an arrogance. And there are others that'll do that too. Bar associations will do that. Other entities in our government will do that because you should never, ever question them. They will decide who exists in our society, and they are not held accountable. They claim that they're immune from even scrutiny themselves. Well, I'll tell you something. I've been trying to hold them accountable now for 24 years since I started Judicial Watch. Of course, I ran for the U.S. Senate in 2003, 2004. I didn't win. I started Freedom Watch after that. Freedom Watch does what Judicial Watch used to do. Judicial Watch is not run by a lawyer. Tom Fitton is not a lawyer. He tries to pass himself off as a lawyer when he goes on TV, but he's not. They don't have a trial team of litigators. They're people that mostly do Freedom of Information Act requests. Freedom Watch is what Judicial Watch used to be. And, we're up against big forces here. We have succeeded. We've enjoined the NSA on 2 occasions under Obama. We have a ruling now from a federal judge, one of the few honest, Emmett Sullivan. Ironically, he's a Democrat, a Clinton appointee, that Mueller is going to have to produce his communications with the media by September 4th. Those will likely show grand jury leaks. At that point, Mueller could be gone. We ask you to support that. Go to freedomwatchusa.org, contribute to our cause, sign up for our Citizens Army, our Peaceful Citizens Army, to try to restore law and order, to eliminate a dual justice system, to be what is in effect the People's Justice Department. That's what Freedom Watch is today. But this is the federal government. And of course, this week, there's been great anticipation, even on Fox News, that the Inspector General's report, which is supposed to report on the deep sixing of emails, the email private server investigation of Hillary Clinton, the illegalities with regard to the Trump campaign. We now have leaks this week saying that basically all that's in there is that James Comey, this corrupt FBI director, has been profiteering with his book, a higher authority or whatever the heck he calls it, simply was insubordinate. You know what? I was insubordinate to the Department of Justice. When my chief told me to do things that I didn't think were right, I did what I thought was ethically and legally correct. And insubordination is not necessarily a crime. It's not a crime. Comey did stuff that was illegal, stuff that was criminal. And apparently this Inspector General's report, which was being used as an excuse by Jeff Sessions to do nothing in terms of actually impaneling grand juries, gathering evidence, holding the Clintons accountable, not just for the email server scandal, but their misuse of their foundation to coerce and blackmail people into paying large sums of money to them because she was Secretary of State. Nothing new, by the way. This is what the Clintons have done, for decades. I've been fighting them for decades. This was an excuse by Sessions to do nothing. And now we find out that the Inspector General of the Justice Department is most likely covering up the illegality of the Justice Department under James Comey, who ran the FBI, Robert Mueller, all these other individuals that are criminals, frankly. And we see that we have no Justice Department. Freedom Watch is your Justice Department. We do what we can do, but we need your support. We need to ramp up. We need your contributions. We need your prayers because we are left defenseless. And when Fox News touts that the Inspector General, with some exceptions, such as Hannity, who's skeptical, to his credit, that it's actually going to get to the bottom of what occurred here, and we know the Inspector General has no prosecutorial authority, we know based on these leaks, if that's the best that the IG is coming up with, that it's shading to protect its own at the Justice Department, then the American people are left defenseless. And that's why you need a Freedom Watch. It's why you need Larry Klayman. It's why I have said that I want to be appointed special counsel I'll panel grand juries if I'm special counsel with the full powers of the Justice Department. I will indict. I will convict. I will hold the Clintons and the other criminals accountable. And I will restore the rule of law to this country. Because if we don't have a rule of law, this country is doomed. We're going down the drain. And that's what we face right now. Freedom Watch can do it. Judicial Watch, my former group, regrettably can't do it. They don't have the ability to do it. We will do it. So please support us. Please come to our aid. Join our citizens' army. Become part of the people. As Pat Buchanan used to say, the pitchfork rebellion. We need to wage a second American revolution peacefully in the courts, in the court of public opinion, through this radio show. Share it. It's on radioamerica.com. It's on freedomwatchusa.org. Share it with your friends because we need to mobilize this country to restore this country to greatness. And we need to save the presidency of Donald Trump because he's doing so much good for this country. He's a disruptor. He doesn't accept the status quo. He's going to be a better president than even President Ronald Reagan was. Reagan was great for his time, but Reagan lived in a time where there was some ethics and there was some morality and there was some sense of the rule of law. That no longer exists in Washington, D.C. and around the country. And that is why you need to join Freedom Watch. Go to freedomwatchusa.org and write the president. Tell him to wake up, not to listen to his lawyers that are out pontificating, spewing forth ridiculous things like Giuliani is telling people that the dictator of North Korea got down on his knees and begged for forgiveness. I mean, why would you say that going into a conference? These are the people that are representing the president? No, we're representing the president. Go to freedomwatchusa.org and contribute to our cause and sign up. We're going to be right back with Sam Nunberg and hear exactly how the federal government, run by Jeff Sessions and Mueller and the rest of these frankly corrupt individuals, bludgeoned him into turning over his cell phone in violation of Fourth Amendment rights. We'll be right back.
Fearless.
He's claiming he's crazy, he's racist, he's out to kill the Democrats.
Dangerous.
You don't care, he uses the court and the law.
Lethal.
This is bad.
Special prosecutor
Very bad.
Larry Klayman.
If you'd like to support Freedom Watch and this radio show, go to freedomwatchusa.org.
We're back with Sam Nunberg. We've had him on our show before. He is subject to the tyranny of the federal government, particularly under Special Counsel Robert Mueller. He's caught in the web of this never-ending, expanding, and frankly illegal Special Counsel investigation. It goes far beyond its mandate to investigate Russian collusion. And now, of course, alleged obstruction of justice and the firing of James Comey. We've talked about that. But Sam this week felt compelled to turn his cell phone in to Robert Mueller. I want him to explain why he felt compelled to do that, given the power that Mueller has been exercising unchecked by the federal judiciary, by the U.S. Department of Justice, or for that matter, any entity that's supposed to protect not just the American people as a whole, but also to protect Sam. Sam, let it rip.
Well, Larry, first of all, thank you. I think you're actually Mueller's power here. I mean, in effect, Mueller wears the pants with Rosenstein. Rosenstein wears the pants with Sessions. So Mueller, in the very least, is essentially the acting attorney general, and I would say he probably runs the FBI. And by the fact that neither one of those agencies listen to the president of the United States, particularly this president, you could almost make a case he's as powerful or almost as powerful as, frankly, President Donald Trump. And he is on a crusade. It's a simple crusade. He does not like the fact that Donald Trump fired James Comey. He doesn't like the fact that Donald Trump treated James Comey badly after he fired him. For better or worse, I'm indifferent to how Trump treated him. And it's also very important to remember two other factors in this. When Mueller was leading FBI, as the longest tenured FBI director of modern times, he told Obama to pick Comey. And then Mueller tried to get hired by Trump to become the director of the FBI after Trump fired Comey. And then And then for some odd reason, Rosenstein appointed him to head the special counsel's office. In terms of me, the bottom line is that whenever I talk to the press, they're monitoring it. They're going to be listening to this interview as well. And they try to pick apart anything I say publicly. They'll have follow-ups to my counsel, my own attorney, Patrick Brackley, asking me to clarify certain statements I've made. And there was an issue relating to an email which Roger Stone's attorney released. Roger had told me in an email that he had dinner with Julian Assange. On the bottom of the email, it said, sent from my BlackBerry, a BlackBerry Android. And I had already voluntarily let them go through my iPhone, my iPad, and my computer the day I went to the grand jury. And they then said, well, we want to see all his BlackBerries, which I don't use anymore. And I had to have, in fact, I was away overseas, and I had to have my father go through my apartment to try to find any and all old BlackBerries that I had. And we sent them in. I think it's because they want to see when I had encrypted these encrypted applications like WhatsApp and Confide and Signal. I can tell you that I have never communicated with Roger Stone or Steve Bannon on any application besides email, the phone, and iMessage. And I have never, I wasn't communicating with the Trump campaign or Russians because logically, if your audience knows this, Donald Trump and I had a very bad falling out. He fired me. I didn't talk to him all of 2016. He fired me 6 weeks into the campaign, and I was sued that summer.
But here's the thing, Sam. Here's the thing. You know, I understand all of that, and those are legitimate concerns. But the fact that Mueller comes up and says, turn in your cell phones or I'm going to subpoena you with his tremendous power, that is invasive. That's a violation of your Fourth Amendment rights. By turning your cell phone, you're turning over information about stuff that doesn't even arguably relate to this Russian collusion investigation or Roger Stone or Steve Bannon or anything. There's other stuff on there, too. And he's not entitled to have that information. But yet, with the power that he has that you just outlined, compelled to turn it over. We got about 20 seconds left. So give me your thoughts quickly on why you felt you had to turn over him.
I felt compelled because I just want to be left alone by them. I want to be left alone. The minute you go in there, they pick apart everything you said, and they'll find.
Well, that's the key, and we're going to have you back, Sam, because you see, you are a victim, okay, and the American people are a victim, and we've basically had enough of this. We'll be right back with Gennifer Flowers.
And now, 4 words that make corrupt politicians make wee-wee in their little pants.
Transparency and the rule of law will be the touchstones of this presidency.
But we have to pass the bill so that you can find out what is in it.
Special Prosecutor Larry Klayman.
Be the one who makes our country great again. Go to freedomwatchusa.org and donate.
I'm back with my client and very good friend, Gennifer Flowers, a courageous lady who stood up to Bill Clinton, who stood up to the media. I represented her during my years at Judicial Watch when it was James Carville, George Stephanopoulos, and of course, yes, Hillary Clinton, the wicked witch of the left, who had this war room and tried to destroy her simply because she told the truth about her relationship with Bill Clinton. They accused her of doctoring audio tapes that she made of her conversations with Bill Clinton. She did that to protect herself because she knew that Bill was not honest. Those tapes also revealed Bill's disparagement of Mario Cuomo, who was running for president at the time, calling him mafia, disparaging his Italian heritage. And for that, she was vilified. The Clintons then intervened and prevented her from getting jobs in Las Vegas, Nevada. She's an excellent singer, and she's actually quite funny. She'll probably show some of that humor today. We've talked about doing a stand-up comedy act together, which will happen sometime in the fall. But I want to introduce you again to Gennifer Flowers. She's very well known. She is an American hero. And I want her to explain Bill's new coming out, so to speak, no pun intended. And I want her to basically say what she's experienced over the years in observing the behavior of this individual and the ramifications for the American justice system and the American people as a whole. Gennifer, welcome to Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. My pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you, Larry. It's great to be with you and to talk to you. You have a special place in my heart because you came to rescue when I really needed the support, and I'll never forget, how you came through for me, and I appreciate it so much. Yeah, I just, not just recently. Actually, it's happened over a period of time where I didn't want to say that I had been sexually harassed by Bill Clinton because I was a willing participant at a point. But when I reviewed in my mind the beginning of it all, when I met him, I was a news reporter and set out to do a story on him. He had been to Washington, was coming back in, and I was to get a statement. And he came on to me the very beginning. Now, I really wanted to make something of that career, and I had a lot to lose if I did anything wrong because I was in a man's world, and they didn't want me in the newsroom. The old guy that had been the anchor said, I'm not going to anchor with a man, much less a woman. The president of the company says, I'm going to tell you what Gary Long, who was the news director, said about you. He said, you're a pretty girl with big tits. And I said, well, he's right about a couple things. So anyway, he went on to say, I'm going to give you this position anyway because I think you'll be great. And but I'm just warning you what you're in for. So that was the tone of things back then. Women didn't have a lot of recourse from sexual harassment or to do anything about sexual harassment or to just try to deal with it as best they could in whatever way they could. And even though I would tell him, leave me alone, stop it, I also had the fear that he would call the newsroom and have me fired. Also was afraid that they might find out that he was even flirting with me because the male reporters were looking at me like, yeah, right. You're going to use your sex to get in front of us to get interviews and get priority. So it was a very difficult time, but it was truly sexual harassment. And it went on for about 3 months. Now, because I went on to have a consensual relationship with him, I felt like I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't say that it was sexual harassment, but it was. And I'm saying it now because I need to get that off my chest. He is a sexual harasser. He's a sexual abuser. He's a rapist. And he needs to be held accountable for that. And I know Juanita's situation is beyond the statute. But I bet you there are women out there that have had that same experience with him and are afraid to come forward. I want to start the Me Not movement because that's how they've treated us. Me, Kathleen, Paula, Juanita, and various others that have come out and told their stories of harm that he's done against them. We haven't been shown any respect. We haven't been called to participate in anything. I mean, I say that I've spoken with the ladies, and they've all told me the same. But we can do our own thing. We don't need Hollywood. Hollywood is so political anyway. For us, it's not about politics. It's about what's right.
I think that's right, Gennifer. But it wasn't just the sexual harassment. You were also harassed and terrorized in other ways. Tell the listeners about that. How they broke into your house and what happened to the other women. I mean, this was Hillary Clinton behind that one, and George Stephanopoulos in Carville.
I truly believe that. Well, my home. This is before the story broke. My home was entered 3 times and ransacked third. I thought the first time I came home, and what it was is that I wouldn't lock my deadbolt. And it was a real easy lock. A lot of deadbolts are kind of hard to turn. This one wasn't. So it was hard to tell if it was even locked in the first place. So whomever was coming in to my apartment assumed that deadbolt was locked. Had a key, mind you, and came into my apartment the first time. the reason that I knew that someone had been in there was because the deadbolt was locked when I came home, and I hadn't locked it that morning. So I called the office and said, did you have one of the maintenance guys come in here for some reason? She said, let me look. No, I didn't. I said, well, someone's been in here, Katie. And she said, well, I'm going to look into this and see what I can find out. A few days later, I came home. The deadbolt was locked again. This time I go in and I go into I'm looking, it's a small one bedroom. I can see most everything. I walk a few feet in and I look into the bedroom and I see that my phone, back then I had a landline, had been moved to the top of the dresser, and there was mud at the bottom of the dresser like from a shoe. So call her again. Now, at this point, I'm thinking maybe that the maintenance guy, whomever it is, has my key and they're coming in to use my phone because they know I'm gone. I was working for the state of Arkansas, a job that Bill got me. And so I was gone all day. And so the third time I came in, my door was actually cracked. It wasn't shut this time. And I just barely moved the door open, and I could see that my home had been ransacked.
Well, of course, you mentioned Juanita Broderick, who I also represented during those years, along with Paula Jones, along with Kathleen Willey, along with Kyle Browning. But their houses were broken into, too. I mean, Juanita Broderick, they broke in and took a tape on the answering machine, the telephone answering machine with NBC. I mean, this is what happened. Many of the women were also audited by the IRS.
I was just going to say, we were all audited. I was all audited by the IRS.
Yeah, I mean, it's unbelievable. And it fits with what's going on today. You see, that's why what happened to you is so relevant to the degeneration of things today. It's even worse today in many ways. And the fact that Bill Clinton can get up there and write a new book, so to speak, ghost written, of course, and get up there and think that somehow he's big man on campus, that he was the greatest thing since sliced bread as a president, and can't even take mild criticism from people in the mainstream media that actually, want to further his book tour at Barnes & Noble and elsewhere is just unbelievable. So,
unbelievable.
I want to get your impressions on you said something the other night when you were on Fox with Laura Ingraham that, he's slipping. He can't even lie well anymore. He was perhaps the best liar in American history up to a point.
Amen. But, yes.
But give us your observations on Bill's current mental capabilities. They seem to have slipped a bit.
Well, I truly believe that I've heard that he's had a number of instances of bad heart. Probably, I know with experience with my mom, once someone has a heart attack, it's very typical to have strokes. And he was not on his game. He seemed weak and very frustrated. But I also felt that he seemed extremely guilty because he knows that this Me Too movement is going on, and he knows that it's just a matter of time until his butt is on the block. And like I said, they ought to include Hillary in that, because she's the one that leads him to believe that he can go on this book tour and have all this confidence and that he's all that in a bag of chips, because she has allowed him to go out and do all that he's done without holding him responsible. And he really hasn't been held responsible by anyone. No, I mean, not really.
It's not only her inaction, but her action. She ran the war room, tried to destroy you.
Oh, yeah.
The other women.
We're all crazy. We're all crazy until we come up with some proof.
Yeah. Is it just the law of averages, Gennifer, that 80 people died in and around the administration?
How about that? People are committing suicide with a shotgun in the back of their head. Really? Jumping out of windows. Okay, well, Parks, who was the security at the governor's mansion, I was coming and going from there quite often. He had gotten back then, of course, we didn't have the cell phones like we do with the cameras, but he was taking still pictures of me. And he let it be known he had them. He was shot and killed. He was shot 5 times at a major thoroughfare at a stoplight in Little Rock and killed. His son is still trying to get some answers for that and probably never will. My neighbor was beaten and left for dead because he let people know he had video of Bill coming to my door. And I knew that was possible because I had locked myself out one day, knocked on his door so I could use the phone and ask the security to come up and open my door. And I noticed that he had a camera. Back then we had the big video cameras. And he had a camera mounted on his door with the lens going out, of the peephole. And he had a direct, his condo was to the side of mine, facing down the hall. Mine was inside, if that makes sense, facing the wall, the interior. But his had a clear shot of that hallway, and he had Bill coming to my door. Well, he let that be known. He said, she's not lying. I've got video of him going to her door. Well, he had a visit paid him. They thought they had killed him, and they took every video in his place.
Did you fear for your life during that period? Do you still fear for your life with the Clintons?
Absolutely. But I can't live my life in fear. I'm not going to. I've let everybody know out there I don't do drugs. If I have a drink, it might be one. I don't drink and drive. The brakes are good on my car. If something happens to me, and I know you would do this, I want them to be held responsible because I know that they would be behind it. I have no doubt about it.
Well, and that's the problem. They've never been held responsible. And for him to go out on a book tour right now and make more money, hundreds of millions of dollars, he cried that it cost him $16 million in the Lewinsky investigation. That's pocket change for the Clintons,
But whose fault was that? He did it. And so if he had to pay money to try to, excuse my language, but get his dick out of a ringer, then it's his fault if he was $16 million in debt. He said it like, oh, poor pitiful me, and it was somebody else's fault that I'm $16 million in debt, and I find that hard to believe anyway. But anyway,
of course, he was never
fault.
really $16 million in debt because his supporters and benefactors, he knew would pay for it all along. In fact, I challenged his legal defense fund at the time and said, look, he's going to be worth hundreds of millions of dollars along with Hillary. And in fact, that happened. So it didn't come out of his pocket. There was no consequence.
Of course, no, but he, of course, is going to make it sound that way. I loved watching him get on the defensive and getting shaken and looking and acting frustrated. And that first interview I saw on NBC, I loved it. I thought, yeah, you're guilty, and you know that this is not your time.
Well, you're right, Gennifer. We've only got about 20 seconds left, but I have to commend you again for your courage. You came forth. It continues today. You're out there. You're my friend. You're my colleague. You're my client. And we've got some more stuff to do together. We're going to be right back with the verdict segment, a special prosecutor with Larry Klayman. We're in serious crisis.
Before he was a trial lawyer, he sliced him and diced him.
People used to ask me, Larry, what caused you to start Judicial Watch and now Freedom Watch, given the powerful forces in this country that put you at risk?
In a meat packing plant.
I'm the son of meat packers in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I know how to slice and dice.
A very special prosecutor, Larry Klayman.
If you'd like to support Freedom Watch and this radio show, go to freedomwatchusa.org.
This is the verdict portion of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. Let me wrap it all up. Where are we today? It becomes more evident day in and day out that our federal government in particular has broken away from the American people. We have a compromised and corrupt justice system. Sitting on top of it is a compromised and corrupt Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, a compromised and corrupt Deputy Attorney General, Rod Rosenstein. We have a runaway, as Sam Nunberg pointed out, Special Counsel Robert Mueller, who is as powerful, if not more powerful, than the President of the United States when it comes to the justice system. The President, by the way, sits on top of the Justice Department. He's technically in control. But we've got this guy Mueller that has exercised federal power to such an illegal and, frankly, reprehensible way that people like Nunberg feel like they have to turn their cell phones over without even a fight. I think of the movie Take the Money and Run by Woody Allen, one of his first movies, where he was supposedly bullied when he was a young kid. The bullies would take his glasses off, throw him to the ground, and step on him. And he got to the point where before the bullies would get to him, he would take his own glasses off and step on them himself. And that's kind of the way I saw what Nunberg did and some of these other witnesses this week in turning over their cell phones. Because there's more on there, even if there was a legitimate basis of alleged witness tampering in terms of the Russian collusion and obstruction of justice investigation of Special Counsel Robert Mueller. He's obviously got stuff on there from, his personal life and from his business life and everything else. And now the government has access to that. And what we've seen, what they've been doing under Mueller is to indict people for having nothing to do with the alleged Russian collusion and obstruction of justice and the firing of Comey. But yet these witnesses and perhaps targets or subjects feel that they have to turn it over because there's no federal judge that'll wind up protecting them if they actually fight a subpoena from Mueller. And that's where we are today. And that's why we're left defenseless. And on top of that, as I said at the outset of this show, Fox News has been touting a report by the Inspector General. See, that's where Sessions and Rosenstein dump everything off so they don't have to have grand juries. So they don't have to gather evidence and indict people like the Clintons, people like Clapper, Brennan, Loretta Lynch, Comey, President Obama himself. Oh, let's give it to the Inspector General inside the Justice Department. They'll take care of it. Well, we know that's a complete sham now because the leaks that have been coming out this week about this Inspector General report is that the worst that happens is that Comey's found to have been insubordinate. Well, that's not a crime. That's a slap on the wrist. And you see, the Justice Department IG, I've asked them to investigate the prosecutorial misconduct with Bundy. They haven't done that. I've asked them to investigate the grand jury leaks of Robert Mueller. We had to go to court to get a judge, Emmett Sullivan, to order that information be released by September 4th. The Justice Department that's supposed to be policing this stuff has become the Department of Injustice and Corruption. So we're left totally defenseless. And that's the reason for being of Freedom Watch, which does what Judicial Watch used to do, which we bring the hard-hitting cases. We're not afraid. We're not just getting documents so we can go on TV and beat our chest like King Kong. Okay, we're trying to get the job done, and we need your support. I run Freedom Watch. I'm a lawyer of 40 years experience. I'm a trial lawyer, and Judicial Watch is not run by a trial lawyer. That explains why they do the easy stuff, mostly. I'm doing the hard stuff. So we need your support. Go to freedomwatchusa.org. freedomwatchusa.org. Contribute to us financially. Sign up for our newsletters. Become part of our citizens' army, because we are all you've got. You don't have a Justice Department. You don't have a federal judiciary, by and large, with some exceptions. There are some good judges like Sullivan and Judge Royce Lamberth and a few others in this country. But by and large, they're yes men and women that rubber stamp what the federal government wants. They are establishment creatures, got their jobs by sucking up to the powerful. And when they get their jobs and go on the federal bench, they repay their benefactor. You need a Freedom Watch. Go to our website, freedomwatchusa.org. Please share this radio show. It's on radioamerica.com. It's on freedomwatchusa.org. You need to enlist, and we need to bring our country back. We'll be back next week with another edition of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. In the meantime, God bless you, God bless your family, and God save America.